What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to share a really quick tip on how I personally stay organized with my sample libraries. And I'm sure at some point you've probably wondered, because of all the reviews I do and like sort of the first impressions videos of new libraries that I put out there, how do I actually manage all the different files and stay organized within my workflow? So I want to make this super simple, super streamlined, and share with you my personal organization process. And of course, at any time, if you want to check out my sample library buyer's guide and all the libraries I actually use on a regular basis, I'll include a link to that below where you can grab my PDF guide for free, basically going through all the sample libraries that I use regularly. And I've also included the prices there in case you want to know how much they actually cost. So if you're on the market for something new and you're interested in what I'm personally using, I'd love to share that with you below as well for free as a gift for watching this video today. So I think the way I'll quickly approach this is we'll start with the Finder view. So I'll show you in the back end how I think about storing samples, and then I'll go into the contact view and actually share with you how I've organized from top to bottom. So the first thing I would recommend is having an external hard drive. A lot of composers, especially when starting out, they store most of their libraries straight on their computer. And you'll soon realize that as you get more libraries in your arsenal, your storage space in your actual computer hard drive is limited, right? So a lot of computers have maybe 1 TB, 2 TB of space, but you usually want to save those for actual session projects, maybe Logic projects, Cubase projects, and other documents, maybe videos and other stuff. So I always recommend having an external hard drive for your sample libraries. And I use a combination of HDDs and SSDs. So SSDs tend to be faster, lighter, and they can also just be a lot more quiet in general. So they don't really distract you while you're working, but it comes at a heavier cost as well. So even just like 2 TB can be like $200-300, I think. Whereas HDDs, they're a little bulkier, they're a little bit slower, but they're quite reliable as well. And they're a little bit cheaper. So I use a combination of both. So this here is my HDD. And the way I've stored it is I have a separate music folder, and then I separate these into one-shots and actual virtual instruments. So virtual instruments would be my sample libraries, string libraries, brass libraries, etc. One-shots would just be regular samples. So usually if I'm producing like a pop song, for example, I have used a lot of samples from my friends at Make Pop Music. So you see they have all these different samples that I can choose from, and I can go through and actually select specific WAV files for my session project. So usually I'll just audition them all through VLC, and then I'll find the one I like and then drag it into my session, right? So that's how I do one-shot samples. But for sample libraries, I prefer to categorize it slightly differently because I have a lot more of these. And so, yeah, you can see here in general, my very first view is orchestral, has its own section, and then everything else has its own section as well. So jazz, I have some things here. You can see this one is quite large, but anything like jazz related, I'll put in here. So that a lot of these libraries are straight ahead samples libraries. What else? There's some stuff from Authentic Soundware, from Virtu as well, from Big Fish Audio. Like there's quite a few things here. And then the other stuff, there's guitar libraries. I have some drum libraries here as well. These are more drum kits rather than orchestral percussion. Those would be under the orchestral folder. I also have the Cinesamples Room Tone, which I don't know if it's available anymore. So you can take a look online and see if it's out there. But occasionally I will use the Cinesamples Room Tone just to add a bit of realism to the overall mockup and make it sound like it's being recorded in that Sony scoring stage. A couple of bass libraries here, really just the one. But I have Trillion, and then I have the Session Bassist from Native Instruments as well. And then other stuff, I have like little trinkets here and there, banjos, whistles, stuff like that, snaps and claps. Piano libraries, I have quite a few because, classical pianist, and I kind of liked having that variety for different projects. A couple of sound design libraries here. Mainly I'm using Elysian from SonuScore, and that's pretty much it for there. A couple of video game libraries, as you can see. I still haven't used Super Audio Cart yet in a project from Impact Soundworks, but I'm looking forward to that day. And then a few vocal libraries here as well. So yeah, basically just general instrument-based folders, structures is here you can see. But of course, because I do mainly orchestral work, I have my own dedicated folder for that. So in the orchestral folder, I have all-in-ones, which are basically ensemble libraries. So you can see there's Nucleus, Berlin Orchestra Inspire, Groth from Wavelet Audio, I believe it is. Jade Ethnic Orchestra from Stress Off Sampling, Lumina from Project Sam, the Metropolis Arcs, Novella from Westwood, I believe it is, and then a few others here as well. So these are sort of the ensemble libraries, and I do use them on a regular basis actually, because they're just really easy to use. And then brass libraries you can see here. Choir is separated in its own folder as well. Harps, percussion, solo libraries. So solo, meaning like the individual instruments themselves, right? This solo is the actual Audio Imperia product called Solo, containing quite a few patches and instruments: violin, viola, cello, brass, woodwind, and so on. So pretty cool. Then I have a specific string folder for solo strings and one for woodwinds as well. Yeah, and in this string folder specifically, I'm mainly using a lot of Cinematic Studio solo strings. Sometimes I'll use the Intimate Legato series from Sonic Cinema. Pacific has theirs as well. Really, really nice from Performance Samples, and this Vista 2 solo cello from Performance Samples as well. Great stuff. And then, yeah, I have a folder for the Lab series. Not using this one too much at the moment, but just so you know, I do have a folder for that there too. And then, of course, I have strings and woodwinds. So some of you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of libraries. And some of you might be thinking, wow, I have hundreds of libraries. Chris doesn't even have that many, right? And yeah, I usually try to err more on the side of minimalism when possible, because even though I'm sharing with you like sometimes 20 libraries in a single folder, I'm really only using like one or two of them regularly. Like CSS for my strings, I've made videos on my go-to libraries for each section, right? So usually it's just like CSS, CSW, Cinebrass, Cineperc, and some choir, some other stuff, harp, but these are just there for variety. And if I have too many, then I can start to feel overwhelmed. So this is just the way I like to organize in terms of folder structures. So let's take a look in the actual contact view itself. So at the very, very top, I have organized my pianos, because this is where I will use my pianos for my sketches for most of my mockups. 99% of the time I'm using a piano to sketch. So Cine Piano is my absolute go-to library all the time. I love that it's basically 4 pianos in one. And if you wanted to try it out for yourself, you can try out Musio, of course, because it includes Cine Piano in there. So there's a link to that below as well in the description. Then I have a few Fracture Sounds pianos, very, very beautiful. I love the Spotlight piano because it's a very emotive, intimate sound. It's a really sort of different sound compared to Cine Piano, which is a lot more neutral and sort of clean and open. But Spotlight, you can really feel the intimacy and the warmth in there, which is really pretty. And then a few more piano libraries here. Then I move on to guitars. So electric guitars, acoustic guitars, a little bit lower. These are from Orange Tree Samples. We have a couple here from different developers, and then some from Native Instruments here for, you know, strumming engines and stuff, because I'm not a guitar player. If I were, I would try to record my own live if I had the right setup, but I'm not, so I have to make do with libraries. And then here's the session bassist from Native Instruments as well. Then I move on to choirs. So here I have Chorus from Audio Imperia, a few others here as well. And now after that, I sort of move on to sound design. So Elijah in here, Horizon Leads from SonarScore as well. A drum library here, retro pop drums. And now we start getting into the ensemble libraries. So sort of piano, guitar, vocals, like those are sort of the band libraries at the very top. Then I start going into ensemble libraries. So the Project 7 free orchestras, Jade, right? And then after that, and now I start moving into solo strings. Joshua Bell, Expressive Violin, the Intimate Legato series, and then some string effects. Now we're starting to move into the ensemble strings. So now you can see, at this moment, I'm not in developers just yet. I'm basically organizing everything by instruments, but very, very soon I will start organizing by developer, just because I like the way it looks. So yeah, these are ensemble strings, chamber strings here, chamber strings from Spitfire, and now I start organizing by developer, essentially. So the Cinematic Studio series, and I think it helps a lot that when the GUIs look very similar, it's just so much easier to put them one after another instead of spacing them out according to the instrumental sections. So that's just the way I've done it here. Beautiful brass library here from Fracture Sounds. And I put them right under Cinematic Studio Brass because it's also red, so it kind of looks kind of cool. Looks very consistent. And then I move into OT's stuff. So I have orchestral string runs, which I believe was their very first library. Very, very cool. Metropolis Arcs, Time series. And now I start moving into the Cinesample stuff. So we have the Celeste here from Fracture Sounds, I believe. And then Mr. Rogers Celeste from Cinesamples. And these are all sort of like Cinesample stuff here, all the way down. Love their brass libraries. And then after that, now I kind of have the Heaviosity stuff. More trailer stuff here as well. So Ferrum trailer percussion, big bams, and then some damage, right? Drum kit, rock grooves, damage 2, beautiful library there. Damage guitars, a couple more guitars here for trailer stuff, another percussion library there. And now I start moving into the jazzy stuff. So I put all my jazz stuff at the very bottom. Swing More from Project Sam, vintage strings and stuff from Funk Soul Productions. And then, yeah, these are the straight ahead samples libraries, Atomic Big Band, and their individual instruments all the way down at the very bottom. Yeah, so that's basically it. So you can see it's sort of a mix of organizing by instruments. So pianos, guitars, vocals, right, at the very top. Then organizing by developer, especially to keep the visuals consistent for, you know, the actual thumbnails on these libraries, the contact player libraries. And then again, going by developer there for Cinesamples, and then at the very bottom going by genre. So here, again, all the jazz libraries are here at the very bottom. And I love, again, how these straight ahead samples libraries are pretty consistent as well. I love all the different varieties of colors. It just makes it really inspiring to pull something in and just play. So all this to say, I'm not like trying to show off the libraries I have or something, but I have received a lot of questions on how I actually organize my libraries. And in the coaching program I do with Ryan Leach, one of our weekly topics is sample libraries and production with sample libraries. And Ryan's always asking me if to show off my collection, or at least like show how I organize things. And there's always kind of something new to take a look at. So I just wanted to share that with you here as well. And I hope it sort of gave you a bit of insight into the way I like to think about organization. And maybe you can let me know down below as well, like with the sample libraries that you currently have, do you tend to organize by developer, or do you go by the actual libraries themselves, like the actual instrumental sections, or do you do it by style? What's your sort of approach when it comes to organization? I'd love to hear below. And yeah, again, if you want to check out my sample library buyer's guide down below, it's absolutely free. And it basically contains all my personal recommendations that I use on a regular basis, not just stuff that I've collected, but stuff I actually practically use. And again, the utilities are in there to share how I would use them. The pricing is in there, and all of that. I've tried to make it a digestible, cohesive guide for you. So if you want to check that out, it's down below. And again, it's a thank you for checking out this video today. So I really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.